Good morning and welcome to This Week. Courting disaster.
I don't want to put anything on the table. I don't want to take anything off the table.
With the default deadline just 4 days away, the government's still shut, Washington's stuck, and the American economy, your money, hangs in the balance. It's up to the Senate to strike a dramatic last-minute deal. Will House Republicans rally a revolt? And if we go over the cliff, what happens next? This morning, all the breaking details about the high-stakes negotiations from Congress to the White House. Then, NSA leaker Edward Snowden resurfaces and Hollywood takes on Julian Assange.
This is information the world needs to know.
The WikiLeaks founder responds live from his London hideout. All that plus the Powerhouse Roundtable and that Nobel Prize stunner right here this Sunday morning.
From ABC News, This Week with George Stephanopoulos starts now.
All of you are telling us Washington has never been worse, and all the evidence coming in this week is proving that point. Government now shut down for almost 2 weeks. In just 4 days, America faces the risk of default that's never happened before. And right now, hopes for a deal to avert that catastrophe rest on two Senate leaders who haven't always been on speaking terms. We're going to examine all the angles and consequences of this showdown this morning, starting with ABC's chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl. And John, the president's talks with House Speaker John Boehner collapsed Friday. Bipartisan talks in the Senate collapsed yesterday. And now this Senate leader negotiation is the only game in town.
That's right, George. It is the only game in town, and it is a game that is not going well. The two men are trying to craft an agreement that would keep the government open and postpone default until at least January 31st. And Republicans have given up all the demands, or at least Mitch McConnell and the Republican leaders in the Senate have given up all demands that led to this crisis. Major changes to Obamacare are not even on the table right now. But the talks broke down yesterday over Democratic demands from Harry Reid to increase spending. Reid wants to end most of those spending cuts that were put in place under the sequester as part of this deal. And George, keep in mind that as these two men hold the key to whether or not this is solved or not, that these two have seen their relations deteriorate so much that they have been barely on speaking terms for several weeks.
At the same time, Senator McConnell is sending out a lot of signals that he wants a deal.
There's no question. Going into this talk, into these talks yesterday, McConnell was already preparing for what he knew would be a backlash from the Tea Party Republicans. For all the Republicans have given up in this, he gave an interview with a local newspaper in Lexington, Kentucky, saying that he wants a come-together moment with Democrats, saying as much as I would rather have a Republican president and would rather be the majority leader of the Senate, I am willing to work with the government we have, not the one we wish we had. So McConnell is ready to cave in on most things, George, but I don't think he is ready to give in on spending cuts.
And no talk scheduled yet for today. Okay, John Karl, thanks very much. That's where things stand in Washington. Let's get more on the economic fallout from our chief business and economics correspondent, Rebecca Jarvis. Rebecca, Wall Street jumped several hundred points Thursday and Friday when they thought a deal was coming. Any sense of how these latest developments are going to go down?
There's a lot more downside risk this morning, George, than there is upside potential. And really what we saw last week is the market cheering on the news that House Republicans had put something on the table as far as the debt limit was concerned. Even though it was short term, the market's like that. Now, when you look at the upside ahead of the October 17th deadline, you have about a 1% potential for upside, 1% upside potential in the markets if it looks like a deal is getting done. But the downside potential is much more dramatic. Ahead of the October 17th deadline, we could see the markets drop 2, even 3% if it looks like a deal isn't getting done. But again, George, this isn't just a matter of what happens ahead of October 17. October 17 is D-Day.
And after that, all bets are off.
After that, all bets are off. Every bank on Wall Street has been gaming this out. They have war rooms set up. They're thinking about their exposure to this. And we could see a very disorderly decline in the markets then. We're talking 5, even 600 points of downside as far as the Dow is concerned.
Back to the days of 2007, 2008.
Exactly.
Rebecca Jarvis, thanks very much.